Hey, we're Seven Kingdoms.
And you're watching RichardMetalFan.
Awesome. Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 310 of Richard Metal Fan Interviews, here backstage at Altar at the Masquerade in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm here with 3/4 of Seven Kingdoms. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good today.
Doing great, thank you.
Yeah, I know you've been on this awesome tour right now, so how has the tour been going? The most typical interview question ever, as I always say.
But it's not the typical tour. We're calling this the Shredding Across America tour, but I feel like we've been shredded across America, honestly. I actually got really sick at the very beginning of the tour, and then Stryker hit a boulder, and then I think Lotharo's had car issues actually today that they just got fixed. So
it was like
it's
negative degrees.
So kind of what I want to do is I want to talk about like y'all's musical history and sort of do a rundown of your discography, but take you back to when y'all were young. So kind of growing up, what were like the first bands that got you all into metal and what made you want to play your respective instruments? Who wants to go first?
Starting off, I would say Metallica. Metallica was kind of like the first band for me, I guess. I got into like Blind Guardian and I discovered like a lot of power metal bands like Halloween, Hammerfall, and Soundcheck, baby. And just like a lot of old thrash bands, really. Thrash and then like European power metal.
So I am not a traditional metal fan. I started out like bluegrass, country, gospel, rock and roll. My first introduction to anything that was really heavy was Aerosmith in the backseat of my dad's car. And then like Celine Dion, Sarah McLachlan, different stuff like that. And then when I met Camden, then he gave me like the like speeded course through like this is what metal is. And so then I got introduced to Lacuna Coil, Nightwish, Amaranth, everything. So
Nice. And for you, Camden?
I actually started with the first guitar I ever heard actually that was overdriven was Blink-182. And then I went through the whole like new metal phase.
Like I did when I was younger.
Yeah, so like Disturbed, like Disturbed, I was a huge Disturbed fan.
Waka kaka.
Pretty much. And then I kind of went into like I had a pretty hardcore metalcore phase. And then I discovered like thrash and power metal after that, and that's what stuck essentially.
All right. And what were y'all's bands before starting up Seven Kingdoms?
Oh man. I was in a metalcore band in high school called The Solemn Vow. We played a couple dates at Warped Tour. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I remember like they called me out of class to like go play Warped Tour, like, and they announced it on the school PA. That was sick.
Nice.
But yeah, that was it.
All right. And what about y'all?
Man. I was in a couple local bands, really. Me and my brother. Yeah. Nothing like, just local shows and stuff like that. Me and my brother always like played together, so that was pretty much it. Like Seven Kingdoms. Yeah.
Funny thing, we actually I was saying This Solemn Vow actually played a show with Cryptic, unbeknownst to either one of us at one point. Yeah.
and mine was just karaoke bars in church.
And tell me about forming Seven Kingdoms, because y'all formed in 2007.
I guess I'll do that. It originally like I put together the majority of like Brothers of the Night before I even knew them, and then Kevin filled out the MySpace thing.
Camden posted like a MySpace ad looking for, musicians and guitarists.
Yeah.
We were like, with influences such as Blind Guardian, and I heard, and I was like,
Let's go. Yeah. So pretty much he filled that out, and then that became Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah, but tell me about making that first album, Brothers of the Night. So what was like the whole writing and recording process like for the debut full-length Seven Kingdoms album?
It was super childish and really like unprofessional, like in terms of how we did it. It was a computer mic draped over a cab for guitars. I had most of it recorded. And like it was all programmed drums, like 100% velocity, just like robot drums. They actually like Keith and Kevin wrote Blackwater Rush on that, and that was added. Like everything was done by the time they got there for that one. So like it was just they did that song. I remember Keith sat there and programmed all those drums. Yeah, it's still robot, but Keith actually programmed them. But then pretty much the second album is when we all actually like went to a studio and like wrote together finally. That's why the style jump is so drastic.
Yeah, but then talking about making the self-titled, because usually with the debut album you have your entire life to write, and there's a lot of hype with the first album. When it came to making self-titled, did you felt pressure to follow up Brothers of the Night?
Not at all. Not whatsoever. Because we were just like we had kind of become Seven Kingdoms then on that second album. So
Found our sound somewhat.
Yeah, and I feel like there was like a change in like the production, especially like having very diverse. Was that sort of like the idea to make the self-titled?
oh well, I mean the recording, like everything was done at Morrisound that time versus like my bedroom, and then like hack mixed at Morrisound because I provided Jim terrible files.
And it was, I think, the first record with Sabrina on the vocals.
Yeah.
So how'd you end up joining the band?
Well, I was at a pizza joint. Camden came and hung up a flyer for them playing with, I think it was Sonata Arctica, actually. They were opening for them. And I kind of made fun of him because he was friends with my friend Veronica on MySpace. And I was like, wow, you can be friends with her, but not with me. And then at the counter, I told him, I was like, I could sing, so if you guys ever need like any kind of backup or any kind of harmonies or whatever. And he's like, oh, we could have used you like a week ago because we got out of the studio. And I was like, okay. And then like through like the month we continued to talk or whatever, and then I went with them to the Sonata Arctica show, and slowly over time I went from being like taking photos and helping with the merch table to one evening Camden was fucking around on the computer and was just like recording something, and he's like, hey, just sing over this. And then when because he had heard me sing at karaoke bars a lot, and so I sang over something, and his mom just like walked up to him and smacked him behind the head and was like, Camden. So it's Mama's fault I'm there.
And were you a fan of Seven Kingdoms before you joined? Were you like listening to Brothers of the Night, be like, this is what I need to do, or did you want to bring like your own style into Seven Kingdoms?
Oh no. So when I was actually offered the ability to like be the lead singer, I was actually terrified because I was like, I can't do that thing that Brian does, that harsh vocal stuff. I can't do that. And I was like terrified, honestly. But I mean, I've always wanted to be the singer of a band and stuff like that. And it was terrifying, but it was also exciting. So in the Christmas of 2008, when Camden asked me that, I shit my pants, but yes, I became the singer of Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah, and I loved how it was that you made the album self-titled, because I feel like that was where you pretty much a standing thing, like you made it like Seven Kingdoms. Was that sort of the reason for it being self-titled?
Partially, and also just because we didn't come up with anything at that time. And you know, I guess, yeah, let's go with the first part. Yeah.
I mean, not really though, but it's just because everything's very drastically different than it was.
All right, and then going into the next album, Fire Is Mine, I feel like it's kind of similar to the self-titled. You all found like your sound. Was that sort of like the whole idea to make Fire Is Mine?
I feel like the Fire Is Mine was when all of us came into collaboration. Like the first, I'm not saying like the self-titled wasn't, but it just kind of seemed like all of us learned to collaborate together in different ways. And then like, you know, like I'm a very ethereal kind of singer and different things like that. And then like Jim Morris is, he's kind of like a family member at this point. So like around that time, he and I started to become like really crazy with the vocals and different stuff like that. And like we all just became like a super big family in that time. So I feel like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also feel like it's a very fun sounding album. Like it has a very kind of like optimistic kind of vibe. Is that sort of like the message behind it?
I mean, I don't think there was a real message behind it. I mean, it was just kind of, everything just kind of, well, we had a lot of Song of Ice and Fire, like related content. And yeah, I mean, I don't think there was any like real message. Right? It just kind of, everything just kind of fell into place, and it just, we called it the Fire Is Mine, sounded cool, you know.
Alright. Then flash forward a few years to 2016, you did the In the Walls EP. I thought it was good because usually when in a band does like an EP, I would consider it kind of like a side mission or a side quest. So how'd the idea to come to be to make that EP?
The EP was actually like it was the first time we crowdfunded. So we did it as a test, It was like because we hadn't released stuff in a couple of years, like I think like 3 or 4 years. And then we had a European tour that we lost like a small fortune on. Okay. So that was the big block of 2 years where we were all just like licking our wounds. Yeah, it was just poorly managed decision by our old management company. And then essentially we took all that time to write the Decennium stuff, which was cool. But at the same time, the EP for In the Walls was like a test for Kickstarter. Yeah. So it was to do a smaller project, make sure we had the spreadsheets and the data correct to like pull that off before we jumped into a full record. Yeah. So that was the plan, and then we were able to re-record 2 of the songs from Brothers of the Night.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, like, what made you decide to re-record those songs?
Well, those songs never got recorded properly, so like that was actually like a real recording of them. All right. So like that's kind of what that would have sounded like if we had done that. So it was cool to do that, and then we had 2 songs from Decennium that has acted as singles, essentially, and then once that Kickstarter came out, it gave us the necessary data to pull off the Decennium crowdfund. Right. So that was all made together, but split off kind of strategically for that.
All right. And then going into Decennium, I feel like it's a good album. So, and I feel like vocally it's a bit of a change. So what inspired that?
Can you ask it again? I didn't hear.
Okay, so with Decennium, I feel like it's a bit vocally it's a little bit different. So what inspired that?
So like the guys wanted to put out like a full throttle power metal album, and that's when I had like just recently because I've been going through like phases with my voice, and I'm like learning how to do certain things. So that was when I finally learned how to sing like a power metal singer. So it was like to kind of flex and see what we could do. Was how Decennium was, I feel.
Yeah, it was very much like like we tried to make that one like a baseball bat. So like some people that aren't into like just can take 10 songs of just fast metal, you know what I mean? It becomes fatiguing a little bit just because it doesn't weave like how we weave now a little bit, you know what I mean? Yeah. It was all just bang, 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 at least to us. Right. So.
And then going to 2019, you did the FTI CD, so how did that idea come to be?
That was kind of the same thing with the like crowdfund, is to like do that before that EP actually became Zenith, but essentially ironically those Empty Eyes was the songs that we had produced for Napalm as a demo, and then they decided not to pick it up, and then told us we weren't going to be able to raise the money that we raised. Like, I have that email. Yeah, it's like we had a kind of a not a very good relationship with them, but it's like that became like we had to do like we created this body of work, and it was going to eventually become this thing, and we wanted to put it out, so that's what it became, and it was an EP, but like that was eventually became Zenith. Yeah. But then the pandemic kind of happened right after that, which kind of gave us that gap of time.
I think it's a good EP. I especially love like the cover of Hearts Barracuda. So what made you decide to cover that song in particular?
With the crowdfunding, we have a perk that's pick the cover. So it was a perk pick from the previous Kickstarter.
Yeah. And then 2020, you did like the two songs, The Great Goat Rodeo and Boys of Summer. So how'd the idea of those songs?
That was just to like put out something during COVID. It was like fun little project.
Super seriously.
It also coincides with the Great Goat Rodeo like spoof that we put on YouTube. That like don't take it seriously in any way. Us being like cheesy.
A goat rodeo. The definition of a goat rodeo is a shit show. So like, which is what that whole time was. So that's kind of why we did it.
Yeah, I know like the whole pandemic really fucked up the whole music industry and stuff. But I'm guessing for you guys, how were you able to like cope with all that?
With the goat rodeo. I mean, it was tough. It was really tough for us, but it was, we got through it.
I think that little weird space and time killed some bands, and then it gave other bands the time to sit down and write stuff. So I feel like the guys took that time, wrote, a bunch of stuff in the riff bank, and then, like it gave us, it's like, the situation in the world was very shitty, but if you used it in a capacity that pushed yourself forward, because a lot of bands had put in a lot of money and invested a lot of stuff, to go on tours and they lost it, you know, and some bands, like, I don't know if you could call it lucky, but, you know, uniquely weren't on tour, so they used that time to create something to put out. So it was a really, really weird time. That's how we decided to use our time.
All right. And did the whole pandemic at all like sonically influence Zenith in a way, or did you want to keep that separate?
I don't think it really influenced Zenith. I mean, Zenith was just like, Zenith is when we started kind of jumping into like a little bit more of that like either sci-fi or like life inspired kind of lyrical content. But I mean, that was just all just generally like what we call it, one-off bangers. You know what I mean? So that was pretty much, yeah.
And then going into, of course, you recently released the Square EP. So how did the idea of that come to be? Is that something to wait while we wait for the follow-up to Zenith?
You want to answer that, Kev?
Yeah, I think the songs just kind of, it was one of those situations where like me and Camden just kind of got together and we would just sit there and just like riff back and forth. And next thing you know, we have like 4 like fairly decent songs, we thought. And we figured just put out something, a little taste for now, and eventually that's going to kind of get the indication of what the album's going to kind of be like, you know,
Yeah.
twisting turns here and there.
Yeah.
It's like a precursor.
Yeah.
It's also been inspired by, you know, a lot of just life. There's a lot of, you know, heavy messages that go along with that can apply to many people's different, you know, life experience. And it can carry over a little bit from 2020 into, you know, now. And, you know, it's just, the way I like to say that the Square is basically the process through situations that we experience, the process of learning how to go through grief and learning how to take situations that happen to you and form it into a personal power rather than allowing it to destroy you.
Mm-hmm. All right.
On like the business side, I mean, it's like we like do. I mean, because it's worked so many times, we like doing this like EP album, because then like with the EP we kind of offer like 3 distinct sounds.
Yeah.
And then
like a sneak preview.
Yeah. It's the sampler platter. You know, we gave them the Applebee's sampler platter.
They got the charcuterie.
Yeah. So like before the album, you know, and then the feedback from this release kind of allows us to hone the record body a little bit more. You know what I mean? And then, I mean, that was pretty much it.
Yeah. And how's like the overall feedback been for Zenith now? It's been out for 2 years.
I mean, Zenith did really well. Yeah, I mean, we weren't with RPM yet. It's funny because like just with this EP that we have now, like we've gotten so much more coverage, just because the muscle of RPM. I mean, Zenith was recepted really well, and we toured a lot on it. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy how
It didn't have as much of an online presence.
Yeah.
Than like the Square does. Didn't really have that type of exposure, I think, you know. But for the most part, I think like everyone, all of our hardcore like bass like seems to really like it and appreciate it, and I think we've gained a lot of new fans that seem to like it for what it is as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people, it's funny because like, you know, being a little baby singer into who I am today, which is me just like tripping into figuring out what my voice sounds like and how to use it. A lot of people are like, wow, your voice has changed so much. You do all these crazy notes. You sing in different places of your voice. And for like people who are listening from the very beginning to now, they really get the full dynamic of like all of our talents and how they've been evolving. And I feel like long-term listeners super like hone into that, and then they pick their favorite albums. A lot of people say that Zenith is one of their absolute favorite albums until now when we just offered the Square, but we have people who are like decennium elitists.
Oh wow!
That was the first album only.
The first album only.
Yeah, power metal first album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it ain't first, you're last.
Yeah, and then talking about like y'all's songwriting process, kind of like with you, Sabrina, being the vocalist, because when it comes to making the lyrics, do you try to put yourself in a certain mind frame in order to come up with lyrics, or do they just come like naturally and organically?
I mean, sometimes they come out like word vomit. You know, you just have this idea and you just start writing it. I have a tendency to like write stories and ideas out like from like all the possible information I can give, and then I normally hand that over to Camden, and then Kevin will do his own where he'll write it, you know, from either life experience or he'll, you know, just word vomit also.
And then Camden, it's like we all write lyrics. I just have a tendency to be the one who writes novels and gives them to Camden to sandpaper down, because you can't read an entire book for a song.
Yeah, and of course now I'm sitting in between the two guitarists. So what inspires y'all to like come up with riffs?
I mean, I actually like the fact. I mean, the last couple of like writing times we have Kevin. It's literally just Kevin and I hunched over in chairs over a computer, and like we're just playing to just some. Yeah, it's very caveman like, but like I honestly like I honestly don't know. That's a good question, because like I'm not necessarily. I haven't listened to something that's inspired me like. To like, oh, I'm gonna like, I heard this, I'm gonna write this song. Like it kind of comes out. And like honestly, like the riffs have come when I've just been sitting next to him most of the time, you know, and that's when like the kind of the collaboration is kind of what puts it together. Like that. What did you just do?
And then you do it over and over again.
Yeah.
Nitpick it. Just kind of shape it.
And then I'll hear one of the things that they're playing, and I'm like, I got lyrics for that, and I just immediately start humming the melody that I hear in my brain. So it's just kind of like, it's like you just get together, and then all of a sudden you just like your brains just start shitting together to make massive something.
Yeah, and of course, like you have the new EP out. So what's the status with the next Seven Kingdoms full length album? What's the status with that, if you're allowed to say?
We have riff banks ready to go, but basically when we get home from this, we're gonna go, you know, take a couple weeks to recover and have a holiday, and then we'll get together and do the marination process of starting new music together.
Yeah, and will you try to continue in the same vein as Zenith, or will you try to do something new that Seven Kingdoms hasn't done before?
It'll probably be more in the vein of like imagine the square but spread out, and like songs that kind of like move in and out of it. You know what I mean? It'll probably be fairly heavy.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we've been really kind of, I don't know, just nailing down lately, or getting really into, is just a little heavier stuff, like maybe breakdowns, you know, or just like borderline breakdowns, but still with like, you know, a song with structure and melody. And,
yeah, but just like a heavier, like making sure people's heads are like banging and nodding kind of like vibe versus just like versus like, so not Decennium. Essentially, yeah.
But still, I mean,
yeah, no. There's like, it's like we're gonna have 2 or 3 like power metal bangers, like undisputable, like fast power metal songs. You know what I mean? But the rest are gonna be like a different snapshot of the band a little bit. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and so kind of like in the end for y'all, what's next for y'all? I know you got the last bit of this tour. What's next for y'all in terms of tours and stuff?
We have the Europe with Unleash the Archers and Striker. Yeah, that's gonna be really crazy. That's gonna be really crazy. And then we're supposed to be. I know we were applied for some festivals, so we're waiting for a couple of them to mail back, and then we hopefully we'll go back to Europe at the end of the year for another support tour. And then the new record should come out at the end of the year or the beginning of next year, depending on how the schedule works and the recording process happens. I mean, all that takes time and effort to like really nail down and deal with it. Obviously, we want to make sure it's good. So
yeah, can't half-ass it.
Yeah. So it's just like sometime November, and end of the year or spring, the new record will come out, and that'll be like the next, and then we'll tour on that for like 2 years probably.
Awesome. So thank you all for this interview. It was great to be able to have Seven Kingdoms on the show. Just any final words you want to say to the viewers that are watching this to close this out?
Thank you so much for your love, support.
Thank
for
you.
being there, for showing up for us, and we are going to just do our best by providing really awesome power metal every chance we get.
Awesome. So everybody, Seven Kingdoms. We'll see you next time.